The coffee cup shattered at exactly 4:47 in the afternoon on November 15th, 1991, at the
Do you
Grindstone
want to
Café
die?
in Fort Carson,
No,
Colorado.
please don't.
The
Then
sound
don't
cut
move.
through the
I
quiet
won't,
hum
I
of the
swear.
espresso machine like a gunshot, sharp and final. Ceramic fragments scattered across the red brick floor in a starburst pattern, dark liquid spreading between the cracks like spilled blood. Lily Brennan stood behind the counter, her hands still frozen in the position they had held the cup a second before. 19 years old, 5'4", with auburn hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, she watched the brown stains spread across the floor she'd mopped just an hour earlier. Her right leg, the one that had never quite healed right after the bicycle accident when she was 12, trembled slightly. The limp she'd learned to hide through careful movement became visible when she was nervous. She was very nervous now. Staff Sergeant Dalton Voss stood less than 3 feet away from her on the customer side of the counter. 28 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds of muscle earned through 8 years in the United States Army and 6 months of combat operations in Kuwait and Iraq. His Bronze Star for Valor sat in a frame somewhere back at his barracks. His dress uniform, pressed and perfect, hung in his closet waiting for the next ceremony where someone would shake his hand and call him a hero. Right now, in faded jeans and a Fort Carson hoodie, he looked like any other young veteran trying to readjust to garrison life after Desert Storm. Except for his eyes. His eyes held something cold and calculating, something that had nothing to do with war and everything to do with the kind of man he'd always been even before he'd shipped out to the Gulf. 2 men flanked him. Trent Caldwell, stocky and broad-shouldered with a shaved head, stood to his left. Wade Merrick, tall and thin, with a tattoo crawling up his neck, from beneath his collar, positioned himself to the right. They wore identical expressions of anticipation, like dogs waiting for their master to throw a stick. I said, Voss repeated, his voice low and steady, carrying the false patience of a man who was used to being obeyed. We need 3 coffees, large, black now. The cafe had been quiet before they'd walked in. Late afternoon on a Friday, the post-lunch crowd had thinned to just a handful of regulars. An elderly woman sat near the window working on a crossword puzzle with arthritic hands. A college student hunched over a laptop at a corner table, headphones blocking out the world. And in the far corner, in the same seat she'd occupied nearly every afternoon for the past 14 months, sat a woman with close-cropped gray hair and a weathered paperback novel. None of them looked up when the cup fell. In Fort Carson in 1991, people had learned not to look up when trouble started. They'd learned to study their crosswords more intently, to focus harder on their laptop screens, to turn another page in their books, and pretend the world beyond their immediate space didn't exist. Lily found her voice. It came out smaller than she wanted, but it came. Sir, there's a line. She gestured weakly toward the young mother with a stroller who stood 4 feet behind Voss and his friends, trying to make herself invisible. I'd be happy to help you, but if you could just wait. Wait, Voss leaned forward, placing both palms flat on the counter. His hands were large, callous, strong. The left one bore a scar across the knuckles from a bar fight in Kuwait City that had gotten him a verbal reprimand and nothing more. Did you just tell me to wait? Lily's throat went dry. She'd worked at the Grindstone for 11 months. She dealt with impatient customers before people who snapped about their orders or complained about the wait. But this was different. This wasn't impatience. This was something darker, more deliberate. Helen Pritchard, the cafe's owner, had told her to be careful. 62 years old, a widow whose husband had died in a training accident at Fort Benning in 1973. Helen had run the Grindstone for 20 years. She knew soldiers. She knew the good ones who came in for coffee and conversation, who treated her staff with respect, who tipped well and held doors and said please and thank you. And she knew the other kind. There was a girl before you, Helen had said just 3 days ago, on Tuesday morning when they were opening up. Claire Ashford, sweet kid, 21, saving up for community college. She worked here 7 months. Then in April, those same 3 came in. The tall one, Voss. He cornered her in the storage room. She quit the next day. Didn't even wait for her final paycheck. Lily had listened, but she hadn't really understood. Not then. She thought maybe Claire had misread the situation. Maybe it had been awkward but not dangerous. Maybe. The sound of Voss's palm slapping the counter brought her back to the present. The sharp crack echoed off the exposed brick walls. I asked you a question, he said. His voice hadn't risen. That was somehow worse than if he'd shouted. Are you telling me a staff sergeant who just spent 6 months keeping your ass safe from Saddam Hussein that I need to wait behind some soccer mom for a cup of coffee? Trent snickered. Wade shifted his weight, blocking the young mother's view of the counter, making sure she understood she wasn't welcome to intervene. Lily's hands gripped the edge of the counter. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips. The medical textbook in her backpack tucked under the counter felt impossibly far away. She'd been studying the circulatory system during her break, memorizing the pathway of blood through the heart's 4 chambers, right atrium to right ventricle, to lungs, to left atrium, to left ventricle, to body. A circuit that never stopped, that couldn't afford to stop. Her own heart hammered against her ribs now, too fast, pushing blood through vessels that felt too narrow. She started. You just what? Voss leaned closer. She could smell the coffee on his breath, something dark and bitter, and beneath that, the faint chemical tang of the hair gel he used. You think you're too good to serve soldiers, that what this is about? No, sir, because I'm thinking maybe you don't appreciate what we do, what we sacrifice. His eyes traveled down from her face to her chest, then back up. The look was deliberate, meant to be seen, meant to make her squirm. Maybe you need someone to teach you some respect. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The elderly woman's pen stopped moving over her crossword. The college student's fingers froze on the keyboard. The young mother took a half step backward, instinctively moving away from whatever was about to happen. And in the corner, the woman with the gray hair closed her book. Slowly, deliberately. Her finger marked the page, but her eyes lifted to track the scene unfolding at the counter. Lily tried to step back, but there was nowhere to go. The espresso machine blocked her on the left, the cash register on the right. Voss's hands remained planted on the counter, claiming the space, claiming authority. Sir, please, Lily said. I'll make your coffee. Just what? Voss straightened slightly. For a moment, Lily thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd made his point, whatever sick point this was, and he'd back off now. Instead, he reached across the counter. Fast. His right hand shot forward and grabbed the front of her apron, twisted the fabric in his fist. Lily gasped, stumbled forward against the counter's edge. The wood pressed into her ribs. I think you need to learn, Voss said, pulling her closer, that when a soldier asks for something, you don't make him wait. Time seemed to fragment. Later, when Lily tried to recall the exact sequence of events, she couldn't piece it together into a coherent narrative. There were only flashes, Voss's knuckles white where they gripped her apron, the young mother's sharp intake of breath, Trent's laugh cruel and delighted, the sudden release of pressure as Voss's hand opened, the sensation of falling backward, her bad leg buckling, the corner of the counter rising up to meet her temple, the red brick floor suddenly much closer than it should be. And pain, bright and sharp and immediate, blooming from the right side of her head like a flower opening too fast. Lily didn't lose consciousness, but the world went strange for a moment. Sounds became muffled. The overhead lights seemed too bright and too dim at the same time. She was on the floor, she realized distantly. Her cheek pressed against the cool brick. Something warm trickled down her temple into her hair. Blood, she thought with odd clinical detachment. Scalp wounds bleed profusely due to the rich vascular supply. She'd read that just last week in her anatomy textbook. Above her, Voss's voice. Clumsy, she just fell. You all saw that, right? Girl's got a bad leg, she just lost her balance. Trent, yeah, man, just fell. Wade, totally an accident. Lily tried to push herself up. Her right hand slipped in the spilled coffee and fingers sliding through the mess of liquid and ceramic shards. A sharp edge cut into her palm. More blood. She could see it now, bright red mixing with the dark brown of the coffee. She was going to try again. She was going to get up, get to the phone call for help. Her muscles tense for the effort. And then a voice cut through the chaos. Calm, level, absolute. I think it's time for you to leave. The voice came from the corner. The woman with the gray hair was standing now. Her book lay closed on the table, abandoned. She walked toward the counter with an economy of motion that seemed almost lazy, but covered the distance faster than seemed possible. Lily, from her position on the floor, saw the woman's boots first. Black leather, worn but well-maintained with reinforced toes. Military issue, or close to it. Then her legs moving with the kind of balanced control that spoke of years of training. Then the rest of her as she came into full view. 47 years old, 5'9", lean and compact. She wore faded jeans and a denim jacket over a gray Henley shirt. No jewelry, no makeup. Her face was weathered by sun and time carved into angles that might have been handsome on a man and were striking on her. But it was her eyes that stopped Lily's breath. Those eyes held the same quality that Lily had seen once in a documentary about sharks. Not angry, not aggressive, just absolutely utterly calm. The calm of a predator so secure in its place in the food chain that it had no need for displays. Voss turned. For a second, genuine surprise crossed his face. Then it morphed into something ugly, a smile that showed too many teeth. "And who the hell are you?" he asked. "Her grandmother." The woman stopped 6 feet away, close enough to be a threat, far enough to have reaction time. Her hands hung loose at her sides. Her weight was distributed evenly on both feet. Everything about her posture said she was relaxed. Everything about her eyes said otherwise. "I'm a customer," she said. Her voice carried the same flat calm as before. "A customer who's tired of watching 3 grown men bully a teenager." Trent laughed. "Bully lady, I saw what you did." The woman's gaze never left Voss. "You grabbed her. She fell. She's bleeding. Those are facts. Here's another fact. You're going to leave now." Voss's smile widened. He looked at Trent, then at Wade, inviting them to share the joke. A lone woman, older, smaller, apparently defenseless. This was going to be fun. "Or what?" Voss asked. "You going to make us grandma, if necessary." The 2 words fell into the space between them like stones into still water. Voss took a step toward her, then another. He was playing now, enjoying himself. This was better than terrorizing the girl behind the counter. This was unexpected entertainment. "Listen, lady," he said, getting into her personal space, using his height advantage the way he'd been trained to use it in interrogations. "Loom over the subject. Make them feel small. Make them back down. I don't know what you think is happening here, but you need to." What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Later, none of the witnesses could agree on exactly what they'd seen. The elderly woman with the crossword said the stranger had barely moved. The college student who'd finally looked up from his laptop said it was like watching water flow around a rock. The young mother said she'd blinked, and suddenly the soldier was on the ground. Lily, closest to the action, despite her position on the floor, saw it most clearly and still struggled to understand it. Voss had reached out. Whether to push the woman or grab her jacket, it didn't matter. His right hand extended toward her shoulder. The woman moved. Not fast exactly. Fast implied rushed aggressive. This was something else. Fluid. Inevitable. She flowed around his extended arm like smoke, her left hand coming up to redirect his elbow, while her right hand caught his wrist. A subtle step placed her behind him, her body aligned with his now overextended arm. Pressure. Precise, controlled pressure at his wrist and shoulder. Voss's knees hit the floor. His arm twisted behind his back at an angle that looked wrong, painful. His face, visible in profile to Lily, went from surprise to pain to shock in rapid succession. The woman stood behind him, one hand maintaining the wrist lock, the other controlling his shoulder. She wasn't breathing hard. She wasn't sweating. She looked like someone demonstrating a technique in a training video, calm and methodical. "Your friend," she said, her voice conversational, "is about to dislocate his shoulder. It's a simple matter of biomechanics. If he struggles, it will happen. You should probably tell him to stop moving." She wasn't looking at Voss when she said this. She was looking at Trent and Wade. The 2 men stood frozen, their brains trained for combat in the desert, but never for this struggle to process what they just witnessed. 1 second their friend had been standing. The next he was on the floor, controlled, neutralized by a woman who looked like somebody's aunt. Trent held up in his hands, palms out. Okay. Just let him go." Wade was already backing toward the door. His face had gone pale. Whatever bravado had carried him into the cafe had evaporated. The woman looked down at Voss. "I'm going to release your arm," she said quietly, her voice for him alone, but carrying in the silent cafe. "When I do, you're going to get up. You're going to walk out that door with your friends. You're not going to say another word. You're not going to look back. And you're going to think very carefully about what just happened here. Nod if you understand." Voss, his face pressed against the floor, managed a jerky nod. The fight had gone out of him, replaced by pure humiliation and pain. The woman released the pressure. Voss scrambled to his feet, clutching his arm. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at Lily. He kept his eyes on the floor as he stumbled toward the door, Trent and Wade falling in beside him. The three of them spilled out onto the street, the door swinging shut behind them with a soft click. Silence filled the cafe. Not the heavy, frightened silence from before. This was different. Charged. Electric. The kind of silence that follows a lightning strike. The woman walked calmly back to the counter. She looked down at Lily, still on the floor, blood trickling from her temple and her cut palm. The sharp calm had left her eyes, replaced by something gentler, almost warm. "You're going to be okay," she said. She pulled a clean napkin from the dispenser, knelt down, pressed it against the cut on Lily's head. "Scalp wounds bleed a lot, but this isn't deep. You might need a few stitches." Lily stared up at her. Who are you?" The woman helped her sit up, supporting her with surprising gentleness. "Nobody important." "That's not true," Lily's voice came out, shaky. I just helped you up." The woman glanced at Lily's cut palm, pulled another napkin, wrapped it carefully. "That's all." From behind the counter, Helen's voice cracked through the shock. Emma Thorne." The woman Emma glanced up at the cafe owner. Something passed between them, a wordless communication that Lily couldn't quite read. Helen continued, her voice steadier now. "You've been coming here every afternoon for 14 months. Same table, same time. I know your name, even if you never told me." Emma stood, helping Lily to her feet. Lily's bad leg trembled but held. The pain in her head was sharpening into a focused throb. She could feel her heartbeat in the cut. "I should call the police," Helen said, already reaching for the phone. "No," Emma's voice was firm. "Not the police. She needs medical attention first. And then," she looked at Lily, "then you need to decide what you want to do." "What I want," Lily touched the napkin at her temple, winced. I don't know what I want." "You will." Emma turned toward the door. "But take care of yourself first." "Wait." Lily reached out with her uninjured hand, caught Emma's sleeve. "Please, I don't understand. Where did you learn?" Emma looked down at the hand on her sleeve, then back up at Lily's face. For just a moment, something haunted flickered behind her eyes. Some old pain carefully buried, but never quite forgotten. "A long time ago," she said, "in places far from here." "Will you?" Lily swallowed hard. "Will I see you again?" Emma gently removed Lily's hand from her sleeve. "Take care of that head, and your hand, and remember you did nothing wrong here. Nothing." She walked to her table, picked up her book, and headed for the door. As she reached for the handle, she paused, looking back at Lily one last time. "Be careful," she said. "Men like that don't forget, and they don't forgive." Then she was gone, disappearing into the late afternoon foot traffic on the street outside. Through the window, Lily watched her walk away with that same economical stride, unhurried but covering ground fast. Within seconds, she'd vanished into the crowd. Lily stood behind the counter, one hand pressed to her bleeding head, the other wrapped in a napkin, growing dark with blood. Around her, the cafe slowly came back to life. The elderly woman stood gathering her things with shaking hands. The college student closed his laptop, avoiding eye contact. The young mother had already left her stroller tracks, still visible in the spilled coffee on the floor. Helen came around the counter, put an arm around Lily's shoulders. "Come on, sweetie. Let's get you to the emergency room." "Who was she?" Lily asked. "Who is Emma Thorne?" Helen guided her toward the back door, toward her car parked in the alley. "I don't know, not really. She comes in every day, sits in that corner, reads her book, drinks black coffee, never talks to anyone, never causes trouble, just watches. She's not just a customer." "No," Helen opened the back door to the late afternoon light. "No, she's not." The emergency room at Fort Carson's Medical Center was busy. Friday afternoons always were. Lily sat on an exam table while a young medic, barely older than her, maybe 22, cleaned the cut on her temple and examined it under the bright overhead light. "You're lucky," he said. "Quarter-inch to the left, and you'd have needed surgery. As it is, 3 stitches should do it." Lily barely heard him. Her mind kept replaying the moment. Voss reaching out, Emma flowing like water. the bigger man on the ground before he understood what had happened. Miss Brennan, the medic waved a hand in front of her face. You with me any nausea, dizziness? No, I'm fine. You might have a mild concussion. Someone should watch you tonight. No sleeping for at least 4 hours. Ruth Brennan arrived 20 minutes later, bursting through the emergency room doors with her hair disheveled and her supermarket apron still on. 45 years old, 5'2", she'd rushed straight from her shift at the King's Supers when Helen called. Oh, baby. She took Lily's face in both hands, careful of the fresh stitches. Oh, my baby girl. I'm okay, Mom. Helen told me what happened. That soldier, Ruth's voice broke. We're going to the police. We're going to report this. He barely touched me. I just fell. That's not what Helen said. She said he grabbed you. She said you hit your head because he... Mom. Lily caught her mother's hands. The police won't do anything. He's a Bronze Star recipient, a Desert Storm hero, and I'm... She gestured at herself. I'm nobody. Ruth's face crumpled. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. But it was true, and they both knew it. Lily Brennan, 19 years old, daughter of Thomas Brennan, who died 7 months ago from complications of Gulf War syndrome. Daughter of Ruth Brennan, who cleaned hotel rooms and clipped coupons and worked overtime to keep them afloat. A girl with a limp and a dream of medical school that seemed to recede further every day under the weight of $47,000 in medical debt. Who was going to believe her over a decorated combat veteran? They drove home in silence. Ruth's ancient Honda Civic rattled over the potholes on Academy Boulevard. The sun hung low over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Their apartment was small, 2 bedrooms in a complex that had been nice in the 70s and was now just tired. The carpet was beige and worn. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbor's television. But it was home. It was theirs. And it was all they could afford. Ruth made tea. Chamomile from a box, so old the bags had gone soft. They sat at the kitchen table, the same one that had been in the base housing when Thomas was alive, when they'd been a complete family. Tell me again, Ruth said, about the woman. Emma. Lily wrapped her hands around the mug, feeling the heat seep into her palms. Her right hand where the coffee cup had cut her throbbed under its bandage. She was just there, sitting in the corner like she always does. And when Voss grabbed me when I fell, Lily paused, trying to find words. She moved like nothing I've ever seen. She put him on the ground in maybe 2 seconds, and she didn't even look like she was trying. Military, because had to be, but more than that, the way she moved, the way she controlled him. Lily shook her head. I've seen soldiers train at the gym on base. This was different. This was, I don't know, professional. Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Your father would have been proud of her. He always said the best soldiers were the ones who knew when to fight and when to walk away. She smiled sadly. He wasn't great at walking away himself. I know. They sat in the gathering darkness. Neither of them got up to turn on the lights. Outside, the sounds of the apartment complex settled into evening rhythms. Children called inside for dinner. Cars pulled into parking spaces. Someone's dog barked sharp and insistent. Helen said you can take the weekend off, Ruth said finally. Paid. She feels terrible about what happened. It's not her fault. I know, but take the time anyway. Rest, heal. But Lily knew she wouldn't rest. Couldn't. The image of Emma Thorne, calm, controlled, utterly competent, had burned itself into her brain. All evening, while the medic stitched her head and Ruth fretted, and they drove home in silence, Lily had been thinking. She'd been a victim today. Helpless. She'd stood behind that counter and let Voss terrorize her, grab her, hurt her. She'd fallen and bled and needed someone else to save her. Never again. The thought crystallized as she sat in the dark kitchen, her mother's breathing soft beside her. Never again would she be that helpless. Never again would she need someone to step in and fight her battles. But to change that, she needed help. She needed to learn. And there was only one person who could teach her. At 9 o'clock, Lily stood from the table. I need to go out. Ruth looked up alarmed. Out, Lily, you should be resting. The medic said, I know what he said, but I need to do something. She grabbed her jacket from the back of the chair. I need to find Emma Thorne. Honey, you don't even know where she lives. Helen does. She told me when we left the cafe, 428 Maple Grove Lane. Lily, Mom. Lily knelt beside her mother's chair, took her hands. That man Voss, he grabbed me today. Helen said he did the same thing to the girl who worked there before me. And before her, probably others. He's going to keep doing it. To me, to other women, unless someone stops him. That's what the police are for. The police want help, you know that. But I can help myself if I learn, if I... She stopped searching for the right words. Dad always said the best defense was being too strong to need one. I want to be that strong. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. I can't lose you too. You won't, but I can't live being afraid. I can't spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder waiting for the next Dalton Voss. Lily stood. I'm going to find Emma. I'm going to ask her to teach me. And if she says no, I'll find someone else. But I have to try. The drive to Maple Grove Lane took 15 minutes. Lily's hands shook on the steering wheel of her mother's Honda. The stitches in her temple pulled when she turned her head. The cut on her palm throbbed. 428 was a small house at the end of a quiet street. Single-story, probably built in the 50s. The paint was faded but intact. The yard was neat without being obsessive. A detached garage stood to the left, its door closed. Light leaked from beneath it. Lily parked at the curb, killed the engine. For a long moment, she just sat there watching the house. What was she doing? Emma Thorne was a stranger, a woman who'd helped her once and then made it clear she wanted no further involvement. Why would she agree to this? But Lily thought about tomorrow, about going back to work standing behind that counter, wondering if Voss would come back, about the fear that had been living in her chest since she'd opened her eyes on the cafe floor and seen her own blood spreading across the brick. She got out of the car. The walk to the garage felt longer than it should have. Her bad leg ached from the day's stress. Each step sent a small jolt of pain through her hip, a reminder of the bicycle accident that had shattered her femur and never quite healed right despite 2 surgeries. The garage door had a small window set at eye level. Lily peered through. Emma Thorne stood at a workbench bent over a piece of wood. She wore safety glasses and held a chisel with the same precise control she'd used to disarm Voss. Wood shavings curled away from the blade in perfect spirals. The piece she was working on looked like a table leg, intricate and beautiful. Lily knocked. 3 sharp raps that sounded too loud in the quiet evening. Emma looked up. For a moment, her face registered surprise. Then it settled back into neutral calm. She set down the chisel, removed her safety glasses, and came to the door. When she opened it, she looked identically as she had in the cafe. Same jeans, same denim jacket. Her hair was slightly disheveled from the safety glasses, but otherwise she was unchanged. Only her eyes were different, tired now, haunted in a way they hadn't been before. Lily Brennan, she said, not a question, a statement. I'm sorry to bother you. I know you probably don't want... How's your head? The question, gentle and concerned, stopped Lily's prepared speech. 3 stitches, no concussion. And your hand? Fine, just a cut. Emma nodded, waited. She wasn't going to make this easy. Lily took a breath. I want you to teach me. Teach you what you did today, how to defend myself, how to... Lily gestured helplessly. How to not be helpless. I'm a carpenter. You're not just a carpenter. Lily met her eyes. I don't know what you are or what you were, but you put a man 40 pounds heavier than you on the ground in 2 seconds without breaking a sweat. You knew exactly where to put pressure, how to control him. That's not something you learn in a weekend self-defense class. Emma was quiet. In the garage behind her, the work light illuminated the half-finished table leg, the neat array of tools, the sawdust on the concrete floor. Why me? She asked finally. Because you helped me today. Because you didn't have to, but you did. Lily touched the bandage at her temple. And because I think you understand what it's like to feel powerless. Something shifted in Emma's expression, a crack in the careful, neutral facade. What makes you think that? The way you looked at me on the floor, like you'd been there, like you knew. Emma turned away, walked back into the garage. For a moment, Lily thought she was being dismissed. Then Emma spoke over her shoulder. Come in. Close the door behind you. The garage was warmer than Lily expected. A small space heater glowed in the corner. The workbench occupied most of one wall, tools hung in precise organization above it. A radio sat on a shelf, silent now. And in the far corner, partially visible beneath a tarp, Lily glimpsed what looked like military gear. A pack, boots. Emma leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. I can't teach you what you think I can teach you. Why not? Because what I know, what I can do. Emma paused. It took years, decades. It's not something you learn in a few lessons. Then teach me what you can. Basics, enough so that if it happens again, I'm not completely helpless. If he comes back, you run. You don't engage. You run and you call for help. From who? Lily's voice rose. The police who won't believe me, the military police who told me today that I need evidence before they'll even take a report. There is no help. There's just me. Emma studied her. Those eyes so calm in the cafe now showed something else. Calculation, assessment, measuring Lily against some internal standard. What happened to your leg? Emma asked. The change in subject caught Lily off guard. Bicycle accident. When I was 12, car ran a red light, hit me, shattered my femur, 2 surgeries, 8 months of physical therapy. It never healed quite right. But you walk. I limp. You move. Emma pushed off from the workbench. Physical limitation isn't the same as physical helplessness. Your leg is damaged. That doesn't mean you are. Then help me not be. Emma was quiet for a long time. So long that Lily thought she'd say no. That she'd politely but firmly escort Lily out and close the door on this strange evening. Instead, she said, if I do this, if there are conditions. Okay. 1, you do exactly what I tell you. No improvising, no arguing. What I teach you is based on physics and anatomy. It works because it's precise. Sloppy technique is worse than no technique. I understand. 2, you're going to get hurt. Training hurts. Learning hurts. If you can't handle that, we stop now. Lily touched her stitches. I can handle it. 3, Emma moved closer, close enough that Lily had to look up to meet her eyes. I'm not your bodyguard. I'm not going to fight your battles. What I teach you is for you to use yourself. I won't always be there. I don't want you to be. I want to be able to stand on my own. Emma nodded slowly. Then we start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Wear comfortable clothes, nothing loose that can be grabbed. And Lily, she waited until Lily met her eyes again. This isn't a game. What you're asking me to teach you is serious. It's about hurting people when you have no other choice. Are you sure you want that? Lily thought about Voss's hand gripping her apron, the floor rushing up to meet her, the warm trickle of blood in her hair, the helpless terror of not being able to stop it. Yes, she said, I'm sure. Then get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Lily left as quietly as she'd come. Behind her, Emma stood in the garage doorway, watching until the Honda's taillights disappeared around the corner. Then she went back back to her workbench, back to the table leg she was carving. But she didn't pick up the chisel. Instead, she opened a drawer beneath the bench and pulled out a photograph, worn at the edges, creased from years of handling. 4 people in desert camouflage squinting into bright Middle Eastern sun, her arm around a man's shoulders. His name had been Mike Rodriguez. He died in Panama in 1989, shot in an operation that had gone wrong in ways that still kept Emma awake at night. I'm doing it again, she said to the photograph, getting involved. You'd tell me I was an idiot. The photograph predictably didn't answer. Emma put it away, closed the drawer. She looked at the table leg, at the half-formed shape that would eventually support something beautiful. And she thought about Lily Brennan, 19 years old with a limp and stitches in her head, and a determination that reminded Emma uncomfortably of herself at that age. This was a mistake. She knew it. Getting involved always was. But she'd seen Lily on that floor, seen the blood and the fear and the humiliation. And she'd seen Dalton Voss's face, the casual cruelty of a man who believed himself untouchable. Emma knew that type, had known too many of them, and she knew they didn't stop. Not unless someone stopped them. She turned off the work light, locked the garage, went into her small, sparse house. Tomorrow at 6 a.m., Lily Brennan would knock on her door, and Emma would do what she'd sworn she wouldn't do anymore. She'd teach someone to fight. Outside, Fort Carson settled into night. In barracks across the base, soldiers slept or played cards or wrote letters home. In downtown Colorado Springs, the bars filled with Friday night crowds. And in a small apartment off Academy Boulevard, Lily Brennan lay awake staring at her ceiling. touching the stitches in her head and thinking about tomorrow. She didn't sleep much that night. The medic had said to stay awake for 4 hours anyway, but even after that window passed, sleep wouldn't come. Her mind replayed the cafe scene over and over. Each replay, she saw something new. The way Emma had redirected Voss's energy rather than opposing it. The precise placement of her hands. The fact that she'd never once looked rattled or afraid. Lily wanted that. That calm, that competence, that absolute certainty that she could handle whatever came. At 5:30 a.m., she gave up on sleep. She dressed in old sweatpants and a t-shirt, nothing loose like Emma had said. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The stitches stood out starkly against her temple black thread and pale skin. Her eyes had dark circles beneath them. She looked, she thought, like someone who'd been in a fight and lost. But not next time. Next time would be different. She drove through the pre-dawn darkness to Maple Grove Lane. Emma's house showed a light in the garage window. Lily parked, got out, walked to the garage door. 6 a.m. exactly. She knocked. Emma opened the door immediately. She changed into workout clothes, simple black pants and a gray t-shirt. No jewelry, hair tied back. "You came," Emma said. "You thought I wouldn't?" Most people don't. They think they want to learn, but when they realize it means waking up before dawn and getting bruised and sore, they find excuses. Emma stepped back. "Come in." The garage had been transformed. The workbench was pushed to the wall. The concrete floor had been swept clean. Gym mats, thin but serviceable, covered a 10 by 10 area in the center. "We'll start simple," Emma said. "The most common attack is a grab, wrist, arm, shoulder. Men who want to control women go for the grab first. So that's what you'll learn to defeat." She demonstrated on Lily slowly. Her hand closed around Lily's wrist. "Feel that the instinct is to pull away. Don't. That's what he expects. That's where his strength is." She released Lily's wrist. "Try it on me. Grab my wrist like you mean it." Lily did. Emma's response was so fast, Lily almost missed it. A rotation of her wrist a step, and suddenly Lily was off balance. Emma's hand free. "Again," Emma said. "Slower this time. Watch where my hand goes." They repeated it slower. Then slower still, Emma breaking the movement into components. Rotate, step, redirect. "It's not about strength," Emma said. "It's about mechanics. His grip is strong in one direction, weak in another. You find the weak point and exploit it." They drilled for an hour. Just that one technique over and over. Lily's wrist started to ache from being grabbed. Her bad leg protested the repeated pivots. Sweat darkened her t-shirt. Emma never raised her voice, never showed impatience. She corrected Lily's form with small touches, adjusting an elbow here, a foot position there. And slowly, incrementally, Lily started to get it, started to feel the weak point in the grip, the moment where rotation became escape. At 7 a.m., Emma called a halt. "Enough for today." Lily bent over, the hands on her knees, breathing hard. "That's it. That's it. You're sore tired, and you learned one technique. That's plenty. It's not enough. Voss won't just grab my wrist." "No, but the principle is the same. Every attack has a weak point. Every aggressor has vulnerabilities. We'll work through them one at a time." Emma handed Lily a water bottle. "Go home. Rest. Come back tomorrow, same time." Lily drank and wiped her mouth. "Emma." She hesitated. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You haven't learned enough to be useful." "I mean for yesterday, at the cafe. You didn't have to help me." Emma's expression shifted. That haunted look returned, the one Lily had glimpsed the night before. "Yes," she said quietly. "I did." She didn't elaborate, didn't explain, just turned back to the mats, began rolling them up with efficient, economical movements. Lily left as the sun broke over the mountains, painting Fort Carson in shades of gold and orange. Her wrist ached, her leg throbbed, the stitches in her head itched. She'd never felt better. The training became a ritual. Every morning at 6 a.m., Lily knocked on Emma's garage door. Every morning, Emma opened it without a word, and they began. Wrist escapes became arm breaks, became choke defenses, became ground fighting. Each technique built on the last, a language of violence that Lily learned letter by letter, word by word. 2 weeks passed. The stitches came out of Lily's temple, leaving a thin pink scar that would fade with time. The cut on her palm healed into a white line across her lifeline. Her bad legs strengthened from the constant pivoting and footwork. The limp didn't go away, but it became less pronounced. Her body was learning to compensate to work around its limitations. Emma never asked about Lily's life outside the garage, never questioned why a 19-year-old pre-med student was spending her mornings learning how to break someone's grip, someone's balance, someone's will to continue fighting. And Lily never asked about Emma's past, about where she'd learned these techniques, about what ghosts kept her awake in the small hours when the world was dark and memory was loudest. They maintained a careful distance, teacher and student, nothing more. But on the morning of December 1st, 1991, that distance began to collapse. Lily arrived at 6 a.m. as usual. The temperature had dropped overnight, first real cold snap of winter. Her breath fogged in the pre-dawn air. Emma's garage showed light as always. But when Lily knocked, there was a longer pause than usual before the door opened. Emma looked tired, more than tired, exhausted. Her eyes were red-rimmed shadows beneath them, dark as bruises. She wore the same clothes as yesterday's session. "You okay?" Lily asked. "Fine." Emma stepped back to let her in. "Let's work." But her movements during the warm-up were off, slightly slower, slightly less precise. When Lily executed a wrist escape incorrectly and Emma moved to correct her, she stumbled, caught herself on the workbench. "Emma?" Lily moved toward her. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I said I'm fine." "You're not. You look like you haven't slept." Emma's jaw tightened. "My sleep schedule isn't your concern. Your form is. That last escape your elbow was too high." Again. They continued, but the session felt wrong. Disjointed. Emma's instructions were curt, almost harsh. When Lily made the same mistake for the third time, Emma grabbed her wrist harder than necessary, forced her arm into position. "Like this," she snapped. "How many times do I have to—" She stopped, released Lily's wrist, turned away. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice had gone quiet. "That was inappropriate." Lily rubbed her wrist. Emma hadn't hurt her, not really, but the loss of control was so unlike her that it was almost frightening. "Tell me what's wrong," Lily said. "It's December 1st. "Okay." December 1st, 1989. Emma still faced away, her back rigid. Panama, Operation Just Cause, was 19 days away, but we were already there. Advance team, intel gathering. She paused. Mike Rodriguez died December 1st, killed in an ambush we didn't see coming because the intel was bad. Lily waited. The garage was very quiet. Outside, a dog barked. A car drove past. Normal morning sounds that felt intrusive in this moment. "He was my best friend," Emma continued. 8 years we served together. I was supposed to watch his back." "That's the deal. You watch mine, I watch yours." She finally turned around. Her eyes were wet. "I didn't watch it well enough. It wasn't your fault. You don't know that. I know that you're still here, still fighting, still helping people like me." Lily moved closer. "Mike Rodriguez would want that, wouldn't he?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "Mike would tell me I'm an idiot for getting involved with you, for putting myself in a position to care what happens to someone again." The words hung between them. "For putting myself in a position to care." "I should go," Lily said quietly. "Let you rest." "No." Emma straightened, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "No, we finished the session. I owe you that much." They trained for another 30 minutes, but the energy was different, softer. Emma's corrections came gentler. When Lily executed a technique correctly, Emma nodded approval instead of moving immediately to the next drill. At 7 a.m. as usual, they stopped. Lily gathered her things. At the door, she paused. "My father died April 16th this year," she said. "Gulf War syndrome. The doctor said it was complications from exposure to something over there. Burning oil fields, maybe. Chemical weapons, maybe. They didn't really know." She looked back at Emma. "Every April 16th is going to be hard. Some years harder than others. That's okay. It doesn't make you weak." Emma said nothing, but something in her expression softened. Lily drove to her shift at the grindstone, feeling like something had shifted between them. Something important. The careful distance had cracked just slightly, enough to let light through. Helen greeted her at the door. The cafe owner had been watching Lily like a nervous mother hen since the incident 2 weeks ago. "How are you feeling, honey?" "Good. Strong." "You look it. Been working out." Lily thought about the bruises on her wrists from grip escapes, the sore muscles from ground fighting, the way her body was learning to move with new purpose. Something like that. The morning shift passed quietly. Saturday morning regulars came in for their coffee and pastries. Lily served them with a smile, made small talk, cleaned the espresso machine between rushes. Normal. Peaceful. Until Claire Ashford walked in at 10:30. Lily recognized her from Helen's description. 21 blonde, nervous eyes that constantly scanned the room. She wore a Target name tag on her polo shirt. Her hands shook slightly as she approached the counter. "Hi," she said. "Can I get a small coffee, just black?" "Of course." Lily poured it, handed it over. Claire paid, turned to leave, then stopped, turned back. "You're Lily, right? Helen's new girl." "Yeah." Claire's eyes went to the faint scar on Lily's temple. "He did that to you, didn't he, Voss?" The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. Lily glanced around. A few customers, none paying attention. Helen in the back room doing inventory. "How did you know?" "Because he did it to me, too. Different injury, same pattern." Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. "Can we talk not here, maybe outside?" They sat at one of the small tables on the sidewalk. December wind cut through Lily's apron, but Claire seemed not to notice the cold. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup, stared into it like it might hold answers. "It was April," she said. "April 12th. I was working the closing shift cleaning up the storage room. He came back there, said he'd left his credit card. I didn't think anything of it." She paused. "He pushed me against the wall, put his hand over my mouth, told me to be quiet. Told me that if I made a scene, no one would believe me anyway." Lily felt cold that had nothing to do with the wind. "What happened?" "Helen came back to check something. She called my name. He let go, walked out like nothing happened." Claire's hands tightened on the cup. "I quit the next day. Didn't even tell Helen why. Just said I'd found something better." "Did you report it?" "Or none. To who?" "The MPS. I tried. They said without witnesses or evidence there was nothing they could do. Voss is a hero, Bronze Star. I'm a community college dropout, working retail." She looked up at Lily. "Helen told me what he did to you, and that some woman stopped him." "Emma Thorne. Where is she now? Could I talk to her?" Lily hesitated. Emma had made it clear she didn't want to be involved beyond training Lily, but Claire's eyes held such desperate hope. "I can ask," Lily said. "But Claire, why now? It's been 7 months." "Because I'm not the only one." Claire pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, smoothed it on the table. Names and dates written in careful handwriting. "I've been asking around, talking to other girls who work service jobs near the base. There's a pattern." Lily scanned the list. 5 names, 5 dates spanning from January to November 1991. "Paige Holloway," Claire said, pointing to the second name. "June 18th. He attacked her in the parking lot behind the cafe where she worked. Broke her nose." Jesus. "Bryn Sutton, August 23rd. He followed her home from her waitressing job, broke into her dorm room." Claire's voice was steady now, clinical, like she was reading a police report. "There's more. I haven't confirmed them all yet, but the pattern is clear. Young women service jobs near Fort Carson, every 6 to 8 weeks. Lily felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Have you gone to the police?" "Civilian police say it's military jurisdiction. Military police say they need evidence. Everyone says they'll look into it, but nothing happens." Claire folded the paper, put it away. "Voss is untouchable, until he's not." "What do you mean?" Claire met her eyes. "I mean we make him touchable. We build a case so solid they can't ignore it. All of us together, every victim, every witness, every piece of evidence we can find." That's a lot." "I know. That's why I need help. I can't do this alone." She reached across the table, grabbed Lily's hand. "Will you help me?" Lily thought about Emma's warning. Men like that don't forget, and they don't forgive. She thought about her mother's fear about the debt they were drowning in, about the medical school dream that seemed more impossible every day. And then she thought about her father. Thomas Brennan, who'd spent 6 months in the Gulf fighting a war he didn't fully understand, who'd come home with invisible damage that killed him slowly over months. He'd taught her that some things were worth fighting for. Some hills were worth dying on. "Yes," she said, "I'll help." That evening, Lily drove to Maple Grove Lane, not for training, For something else. Emma answered the door in civilian clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt. She looked better than she had that morning. Rested, more herself. Lily, we don't train on Saturdays. I know, I need to talk to you about something else. Lily hesitated. Can I come in? Emma's house was as sparse as Lily had imagined. Living room with a couch, a chair, a small television. Kitchen visible through a doorway, clean and minimal. No photographs on the walls, no personal touches. It looked like a place someone lived but didn't inhabit. They sat in the living room. Lily explained about Claire, about the list, about the pattern of attacks spanning nearly a year. Emma listened without interrupting. When Lily finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is what I was afraid of, she said finally. What? That you'd get involved, that you'd try to fight a system designed to protect men like Voss. Emma leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Lily, I teach you self-defense so you can protect yourself in the moment, not so you can wage war against the entire military justice system. I'm not waging war, I'm just helping gather evidence. Evidence that might get you hurt, or worse. Emma stood paced to the window. Voss knows you're a threat now. If he finds out you're actively working against him, then what? He'll attack me again. Lily stood too. Good, let him try. This time I'll be ready. This time I'll have witnesses and cameras and everything I need to bury him. You're 19 years old. I'm old enough to know right from wrong. Old enough to know that 7 women have been hurt and nothing's been done about it. Lily moved closer. You helped me. Now I'm going to help them. I thought you'd understand that. Emma turned from the window. I do understand. That's the problem. I understand exactly how this ends. How? With you getting hurt, with Voss walking away, with the system protecting its own and leaving you with nothing but scars and regrets. You don't know that. I've seen it before. Different place, different team, but the same story. The powerful protect the powerful. The vulnerable get sacrificed. Emma's voice had gone hard. I won't watch it happen again. Then help me make sure it doesn't. They stared at each other across the small living room. Outside, the winter sun was setting early, painting the walls in shades of amber and gold. What exactly are you asking me to do? Emma asked. Teach me how to build a case. You were military. You know how the system works. You know what kind of evidence they can't ignore. That's not self-defense. That's investigation. It's defending myself in a different way. Defending all of us. Emma was quiet for a long time, so long that Lily thought she'd refuse. Then she sighed a sound of surrender. If I help you with this, we do it right. We follow procedure. We document everything. We don't cut corners, and we don't take risks we don't have to take. Agreed. And if at any point I think you're in real danger, we stop. No arguments. Okay, Emma nodded slowly. Then we start tomorrow. Bring Claire. We'll go through her list, verify every name, every date. We'll build a timeline that's airtight. Lily felt something loosen in her chest, relief, gratitude, hope. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be harder than any training session, and there's no guarantee it works. I know, but at least we're trying. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Lily worked her shifts at the grindstone, attended her classes at CCS, and spent every spare moment with Claire and Emma building their case. They started with Paige Holloway, 22 years old, worked at a diner 3 blocks from Fort Carson. Claire had gotten her name from another waitress who had heard about the attack. Finding her took 2 days of calling every Holloway in the Colorado Springs phone book. When they finally reached her, Paige was reluctant to talk. That was months ago, she said over the phone. I don't want to dredge it up. Please, Lily said. We're building a case. You're not alone. There are others. How many others? At least 6 that we know of. Silence on the line. Then quietly, 6. Maybe more. Will you talk to us? They met Paige at a Denny's on Academy Boulevard. She showed up 15 minutes late, eyes red like she'd been crying. 22 years old but looked older. The kind of older that comes from carrying weight that shouldn't be yours to carry. She told her story while stirring sugar into coffee she never drank. June 18th, closing shift at the diner. Voss and his friends had come in late, demanded service after closing time. When Paige refused, Voss followed her to the parking lot. He said I was disrespectful, that I needed to learn my place. Page's voice was flat, affectless. He grabbed me. I pushed him away. He punched me in the face, broke my nose, blood everywhere. He and his friends just laughed and walked away. Emma, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Did you go to the hospital? Yeah, Colorado Springs Memorial. They took pictures of my face, set my nose, asked if I wanted to file a police report. Did you buy Yoa? Yeah, for all the good it did. Cops took my statement, said they'd investigate. Never heard anything back. Page finally looked up. You really think you can do something about this? We're going to try, Lily said. Why, what's it to you? Because he did it to me too, and he's going to keep doing it unless someone stops him. Paige considered this. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a folded envelope. Hospital records from that night. I kept them. Don't know why. Maybe I knew I'd need them someday. She slid the envelope across the table. Inside were medical reports, photographs of Paige's shattered nose, x-rays showing the fracture, date stamped June 18, 1991. Physician's notes clearly stating assault victim and describing injuries consistent with being struck in the face. Emma examined the documents with the careful attention of someone who knew their value. This is good. This is evidence they can't dismiss. They spent the next week tracking down the other names on Claire's list. Bryn Sutton, 19 USANAC student. She'd been hardest to convince. I can't, she said when they met her at the campus library. I just can't. If I come forward, if I testify or whatever, he said he'd kill me. He said that, Emma's voice had gone very quiet, after he broke into my dorm room. August 23rd, 2 in the morning. I woke up and he was just there standing over my bed. Bryn's hand shook. He said if I told anyone he'd come back and finish the job. Lily reached across the table, took Bryn's hand. How many of us are there now? Claire, Page, me, you. At least 4, probably more. He can't threaten all of us. He can't silence all of us. He can try. Let him try. We'll be ready. But convincing Bryn took time. Days of gentle persuasion, of building trust, of showing her the evidence from Page, the timeline from Claire, the growing case that might actually lead somewhere. Finally, reluctantly, she agreed. But I need protection. If I do this, if I come forward, I need to know I'm safe. Emma looked at Lily. They discussed this possibility. Emma had made calls to people she knew, people from her military days who owed her favors. I can arrange for someone to watch your dorm. Civilian security, former military. They'll keep you safe. You can do that. I can try. While they gathered evidence and victim testimony, Lily continued her training. The early morning sessions had become harder, more intense. Emma was teaching her things now that went beyond simple self-defense. How to read people's intentions from their body language. How to assess threat levels. How to maintain awareness of her surroundings without appearing paranoid. You're being watched, Emma said one morning in mid-December. Did you notice? Lily's blood went cold. What? Yesterday when you left, gray sedan, 2 men inside parked across the street. They followed you for 3 blocks before turning off. Why didn't you tell me? I'm telling you now. The question is, did you notice? Lily thought back. She'd been tired yesterday, distracted, walking to her car, driving home. Had she noticed anything unusual? No, she admitted. I didn't. Then you need to start. Awareness keeps you alive. Awareness gives you time to react. Emma moved to the garage door, pointed out to the street. When you leave here every morning, what do you see? My car, the street. Wrong. You see vehicles parked on the street. You note which ones are regular, which are new. You see people and you categorize them. Resident visitor threat. You see exit routes. You see cover. You see everything. That sounds exhausting. It is. It also keeps you breathing. Emma closed the door. Voss knows you're investigating. He's watching. You need to watch back. The realization that she was being surveilled should have terrified Lily. Instead, it made her angry. The kind of cold-focused anger that sharpened thought rather than clouding it. Good, Emma said, reading her expression. Use that. Channel it. Anger is fuel if you control it. On December 16th, they had what Emma called a pattern meeting. All 4 confirmed victims, plus Emma and Lily, gathered in Emma's living room. It was crowded, uncomfortable. Claire on the couch, Paige in the chair, Bryn on the floor, Lily and Emma standing. Emma had prepared a timeline, hand-drawn on poster board, precise as a military operation. Names, dates, locations, lines connecting incidents showing the progression. He's escalating, Emma said, pointing to the timeline. January, verbal harassment. April, physical assault, but no injury requiring hospitalization. June, broken nose. August, home invasion with death threats. November, assault resulting in injury requiring stitches. The women looked at each other. Claire's hands trembled. Paige's jaw set hard. Bryn's eyes filled with tears. 7 of us, Bryn whispered. Jesus Christ, 7. That we know of, Claire added quietly. What does that mean? Paige asked, her voice harder now, and that he's getting worse. It means he's getting bolder. Each attack is more severe than the last. He's testing boundaries, seeing what he can get away with. Emma looked around the room. It also means he won't stop, not unless he's forced to. How do we force him? Paige's voice was hard. The cops won't help. The MPs won't help. Who's left? We build a case so strong they have to help. Multiple victims, medical records, timeline, pattern of behavior. Emma tapped the poster board. But we need more. We need something that ties Voss directly to each incident in a way he can't deny. Like what? Lily asked. Witnesses would be ideal. But failing that, we need him on record. We need him to admit what he's done. How do we get that? Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at Lily. We bait him. We get him talking. We record it. The room went silent. That's dangerous, Bryn said. Yes. He could hurt whoever tries it. Yes. But it would work, Emma nodded. If we do it right, if we control the environment, if we have backup, yes, it could work. 4 pairs of eyes turned to Lily. She felt their weight, their expectation. She was the newest victim, the one who'd been saved by Emma, the one who'd started this whole investigation. I'll do it, she said. Lily, no. Claire stood. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He attacked me 2 weeks ago. It's fresh. He'll expect me to be scared to stay quiet. When I confront him, he'll have to react, and we'll have him. Emma's expression was unreadable. You understand what you're proposing, face-to-face confrontation with a man who's already hurt you once? Yes. And you think you're ready for that? Lily met her eyes, thought about 2 weeks of training, of wrist escapes and throws and ground fighting, of learning to channel fear into action. I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I'm more ready than I was, and I know we need this. Emma nodded slowly. Then we plan it carefully, very carefully. Location, timing, backup. We don't leave anything to chance. They spent the next hour planning. The Grindstone Café seemed like the obvious choice. Public location, security cameras that Helen had installed after Claire quit, witnesses, and it was Voss's pattern to return to his hunting grounds. He'll come back, Emma said. Men like him always do. They can't help themselves. We just need to be ready when he does. When? Lily asked. Soon, before Christmas. He's getting bolder and the holiday season gives him cover. Everyone's distracted thinking about family and leave time. Perfect opportunity for him to strike again. They set the date, Friday, December 20th, late afternoon post-lunch lull when the cafe was quietest. Lily would work her regular shift. Emma and one other would be present as backup position to intervene if things went wrong. Lily would wear a small cassette recorder in her apron pocket. The goal was simple. Get Voss talking about the attacks. Get him to admit on tape what he'd done. Then use that recording combined with the victim testimony and medical records to force the MPs to act. Simple in theory, terrifying in practice. But before they could execute the plan, Lily needed one more piece of information. Something that had been nagging at her since Claire first showed her the list. The extortion, Lily said. When did that start? The women looked at each other. Bryn spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. He came back 2 weeks after the break-in. August, I don't know, maybe September 5th or 6th. Showed up at my dorm in broad daylight. Said if I didn't pay $400 a month, he'd tell campus police I invited him in. That I was making false accusations to get attention. Her hands twisted together. I've been paying since September 1st. $400 every month. Oh, same here, Paige said. He approached me 3 weeks after the parking lot attack. Said if I didn't pay $300 a month, he'd come back and finish the job. I've been paying since mid-July. Claire shook her head. He never asked me for money. Maybe because I quit so fast I don't know. Emma was taking notes, adding to the timeline. So we're not just talking about assault. We're talking about systematic extortion, a protection racket. She looked up. That changes things. That's organized criminal activity. That's UCMJ, Article 127. That's serious time. How much has he made? Lily asked. Emma did the math quickly. Bryn 4 months at 400, that's 1,600. Paige 5 months at 300, that's 1,500. If there are more victims we haven't found, she trailed off. He could have pulled in $20,000, $30,000 or more. The room went quiet. The enormity of it settled over them. This wasn't just a man with anger issues. This was calculated, predatory, a business. But we get him on tape, Emma said. We get him admitting to the assaults, but we also get him talking about the money. We get him to incriminate himself completely. Lily nodded. The weight of what they were planning pressed down on her shoulders. But beneath the fear, she felt something else. Determination, purpose. They were going to end this. The days leading up to December 20th felt like waiting for a storm. Lily went through her routines in a haze. Classes, work, training, but her mind was always on Friday, on what might happen, on what she'd have to do. Emma increased the intensity of training. If he touches you again, she said, you need to be able to defend yourself long enough for backup to arrive. That means you need your techniques to be automatic. No thinking, just reaction. They drilled escapes until Lily's wrists were bruised. They practiced awareness exercises until she could catalog every person entering a room, every exit, every potential weapon. They went through scenarios, Emma playing Voss, showing Lily what he might do and how to counter it. He'll try to intimidate you, Emma said. Get in your space. Use his huifas. Don't let him. Hold your ground. Stay calm. Remember, you control this interaction, not him. On December 19th, the night before Lily couldn't sleep, she lay in her small bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to her mother's soft snoring through the thin walls. The cassette recorder sat on her nightstand, small and black and impossibly heavy with potential. Tomorrow she would face Dalton Voss again. Tomorrow she would either get the evidence they needed or she would fail, and all of this, all the planning and gathering and hoping would be for nothing. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Be brave, Lily Bean. Brave doesn't mean not scared. Brave means scared, but doing it anyway. She touched the scar on her temple, felt the ridge of healed skin, remembered the pain, the blood, the helplessness. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she would be ready. At 5 a.m. on December 20th, Lily gave up on sleep. She dressed carefully, jeans that allowed movement, a blouse that would hide the wire, the apron that would hold the recorder. She checked the cassette player 3 times, making sure the batteries were fresh, the tape was blank and ready. Her mother found her in the kitchen, making coffee with shaking hands. Lily, Ruth touched her shoulder. Honey, what's wrong? Oh, no. Nothing, it just couldn't sleep. Is it about today? About what you're planning? Lily had told her mother the basics. Not everything, but enough. Ruth had wanted to forbid it to protect her daughter the way she hadn't been able to protect her husband. But she'd seen the determination in Lily's eyes and known that forbidding wouldn't work. Promise me you'll be careful, Ruth said now. I promise. Promise me if it gets too dangerous, you'll run. Mom, promise me, Lily. Your father's already gone. I can't lose you too. Lily turned, hugged her mother tight. You won't. I'm coming home tonight. I'm going to be fine. She drove to the grindstone through the pre-dawn darkness. The streets were empty, the city still sleeping. She parked in the alley behind the cafe as usual. Checked the recorder one more time. Pressed play, spoke a few words, rewound, played back. Her voice came through clearly. Ready. Helen was already inside prepping for the morning rush. She looked up when Lily entered, her expression worried. You sure about this, honey? I'm sure, sir. Emma will be here by 4, and that other friend of hers, the retired sergeant, they'll be watching. Lily nodded. Emma had called in Cole Hargrove, the elderly man who'd witnessed Voss's attack on November 15th. He'd agreed to come to serve as both witness and backup. "It'll be okay," Lily said, more to convince herself than Helen. The morning passed in a blur. Regular customers came and went. Lily made their coffee, took their orders, smiled, and chatted like it was any other day. But her awareness was heightened, Emma's training kicking in. She noted every person who entered, cataloged their positions, marked the exits. At 4 p.m. Emma arrived. She took her usual corner table, ordered black coffee, opened a book. To any observer, she was just another regular customer. But Lily saw the way her eyes tracked the room, the way she positioned herself to have clear sight lines to the counter and the door. At 4:15, Cole Hargrove entered, elderly, stooped, walking with a cane. He ordered tea, took a table near the window, pulled out a newspaper, started the crossword, back up in position. At 4:30, the post-lunch crowd had thinned to just a handful of customers. Lily wiped down the counter, rearranged the pastry display. Her heart hammered. The recorder in her apron pocket felt like it weighed 10 pounds. At 4:47, the door opened. Dalton Voss walked in. He looked exactly as Lily remembered. Tall, muscular, confident. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, and a Fort Carson hoodie. Trent Caldwell and Wade Merrick flanked him, same as before. Voss's eyes found Lily behind the counter. For a moment, surprise flickered across his face. Then it morphed into something uglier, a smile that showed teeth but no warmth. He walked to the counter, not rushing, taking his time, claiming the space. "Well," he said, "look who's still here. Thought you'd have quit by now. Most girls do." Lily kept her voice steady. "Can I help you with something?" "Yeah, 3 coffees, large, black." He leaned against the counter, invading her space like before. "Unless you're going to make me wait again." This was it, the moment. Lily's hand moved to her apron pocket, pressed the recorder's play button through the fabric. The tape began to roll. Lily's fingers found the recorder button through the fabric of her apron. A small click, barely audible beneath the hiss of the espresso machine. The tape began to turn, capturing everything. "No waiting necessary," Lily said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. 3 large black coffees. That'll be $6.75. Voss didn't move to pay. He stayed leaning against the counter, taking up space, making her work around him. Behind him, Trent and Wade spread out slightly, blocking the view from the door. A practiced formation. "You know," Voss said, voice conversational, "I've been thinking about you, about what happened last time I was here." Lily poured the first coffee, hand steady despite her racing pulse. "I remember what happened. Because the way I remember it, you got clumsy, lost your balance. Unfortunate accident." "That's not what happened." Voss's smile widened. "Careful. You calling me a liar?" In the corner, Emma turned a page of her book, didn't look up. But Lily saw her body language shift, saw her weight redistribute, ready to move. "I'm saying I remember it differently," Lily said. She poured the second coffee. "You grabbed my apron. I fell, hit my head on the counter." "Prove it." "I have the medical records, 3 stitches. Documentation from this emergency room at Fort Carson." Voss laughed, short and sharp. "Medical records prove you hurt yourself. They don't prove I did anything. Accidents happen, especially to clumsy girls with bad legs." The casual cruelty in his voice made Lily's jaw tighten, but she forced herself to stay calm, to keep him talking. The tape was rolling. Every word he said was being captured. "Claire Ashford wasn't clumsy," Lily said quietly. "Neither was Paige Holloway or Bryn Sutton." Voss's expression changed. The predatory smile faded, replaced by something colder, more calculating. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. April 12th, June 18th, August 23rd. Lily poured the third coffee, set all 3 on the counter. "Should I keep going?" Behind Voss, Trent shifted uncomfortably. Wade's eye had darted to the door, to the windows, mapping exits. They felt the trap closing, even if they couldn't see it yet. "You've been asking questions," Voss said. His voice had dropped, gone quieter, more dangerous. "Talking to people, sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I've been talking to the women you hurt." "I haven't hurt anyone." "You broke Paige Holloway's nose, put her in the hospital." "That's a lie." She has x-rays, medical records, police report. Lily leaned forward slightly, holding his gaze. But you know that already, don't you? You knew when you hit her that she'd go to the hospital. You just didn't care because you thought no one would believe it, just like no one would believe Claire, or Bryn, or me. Voss's hands curled into fists on the counter. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Explain why 4 different women have the same story, same pattern. You cornering them, threatening them, hurting them when they don't do what you want. Because they're lying, all of them, making things up to get attention, to get money. Money, so Lily's voice rose slightly. From who? From me, from the army, filing false claims, hoping for a payout. Voss straightened, playing to an invisible audience. That's what this is about. A bunch of girls trying to shake down a combat veteran. Is that why Bryn pays you $400 every month? The words came out before Lily fully thought them through. To stop you from shaking her down. The temperature in the room dropped. Voss went very still. Behind him, Trent and Wade exchanged glances. This was new information to them. What did you say? Voss's voice was barely above a whisper. Lily's heart hammered, but she pushed forward. Bryn Sutton, $400 a month since September. Paige Holloway, $300 since July. You're not just attacking these women, you're extorting them. You're making this up. Am I? Because I can show you bank records. Cash withdrawals on the same day every month. Matching amounts. All of them scared to death that if they don't pay, you'll come back and finish what you started. Voss's face flushed dark red. You little... He moved, fast. His hands shot across the counter, fingers closing around Lily's wrist. But this time Lily was ready. She rotated her wrist exactly as Emma had taught her. Found the weak point in his grip. Twisted, stepped back. His hand came free, and she was out of reach before he could grab again. Don't touch me, she said. Her voice was steady, strong. Nothing like the scared girl from 2 weeks ago. Voss stared at his empty hand, then at her. Surprise flickered across his face. You've been learning tricks. I've been learning to defend myself. From who that old bitch in the corner, Voss glanced toward Emma's table. She can't help you all the time. Emma continued reading, turned another page, but Lily saw her hand move, saw her mark her place in the book. Ready. I don't need her help, Lily said. I need you to leave. Now. Voss laughed. Or what you'll call the MPs. They already know about you. They know you're making accusations you can't prove. Major Kelly told me all about your little visit, your file of lies. It's not lies if it's documented, if it's witnessed, if it's recorded. The word hung in the air. Recorded. Voss's eyes narrowed. What? Every word you've said since you walked in here, I've got it on tape. Lily pulled the recorder from her apron pocket, held it up. The wheels were still turning, red light, still glowing. You admitting you know about Claire, about Paige, about Bryn. You calling them liars. You grabbing me just now. Voss lunged across the counter. Lily jerked back, but not quite fast enough. His fingers caught the recorder, yanked. The strap around her wrist held for a second, then broke. The recorder flew across the cafe, hit the wall, clattered to the floor. Emma moved. She was out of her seat and across the room before Voss could process what was happening. 1 second, he was leaning over the counter, triumphant. The next, Emma had his arm twisted behind his back, same wrist lock as before, same precise pressure that dropped him to his knees. Security cameras, Emma said calmly, nodding to the corners of the ceiling. They caught all of that, the grab, the lunge, everything. Voss struggled. Emma applied more pressure. He gasped, went still. Stay down, Emma said. Her voice was conversational, almost gentle. Or your shoulder dislocates. Your choice, Emma's. From his table by the window, Cole Hargrove stood, slowly leaning on his cane. He walked to the counter with the deliberate pace of a man who'd seen enough violence in his life to know when it was necessary and when it wasn't. Staff Sergeant Voss, Hargrove said. His voice carried the weight of rank of decades of service. I am a witness to what just occurred, as I was a witness on November 15th when you assaulted Miss Brennan the first time. Trenton waved back toward the door. Man, we didn't sign up for this, Trent muttered. Don't move, Hargrove said. Not loud, not aggressive, but something in his tone froze them both. You're witnesses too, whether you want to be or not. The door to the cafe opened. Major Preston Kelly walked in, flanked by two military police officers. He took in the scene with a single sweep of his eyes. Voss on the ground, Emma controlling him, Hargrove standing witness, Lily behind the counter with a broken recorder at her feet. Well, Kelly said, this is unfortunate. Emma looked up. Major, good timing. Miss Thorne called me 20 minutes ago. Said there might be an incident. Kelly approached the counter, picked up the recorder. The tape was still running, miraculously undamaged. This everything from the moment he walked in, Emma said. Kelly pressed, stop rewound, slightly pressed play. Voss's voice came through the small speaker, tinny but clear. Claire Ashford wasn't clumsy, neither was Paige Holloway or Bryn Sutton. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. April 12th, June 18th, August 23rd. Kelly let it play for another 30 seconds through Voss's denial about the broken nose, through the admission about knowing the victims, through the extortion reveal. Then he stopped the tape. That's plenty. He nodded to the MPs. Detain Staff Sergeant Voss and his associates. Sir, one of the MPs said. On what charges? For now, assault, destruction of property, threatening a witness. Kelly pocketed the recorder. We'll add to the list once I review the full evidence Miss Brennan has compiled. Emma released Voss. He stumbled to his feet, clutching his arm. His face was a mask of rage and humiliation. This is bullshit. You can't. I can and I am. Kelly's voice was flat, hard. 2 weeks ago, I told Miss Brennan she needed solid evidence. She's provided it. Multiple victims, medical records, timeline, witness testimony, and now recorded confession and assault in front of witnesses. He looked at Voss with something like disgust. You're done, soldier. The MPs moved in, cuffed Voss, read him his rights, did the same to Trent and Wade, who'd gone pale and silent. As they were let out, Voss twisted to look back at Lily. This isn't over. Oh, he snarled. Kelly stepped between them. Yes, it is. Miss Brennan, you'll need to come to my office tomorrow. Bring your documentation. All of it. Lily nodded. She couldn't speak. The adrenaline that had kept her steady through the confrontation was draining away, leaving her shaky and weak. After they left, the cafe went silent. Helen emerged from the back room where she'd been watching through a crack in the door. Oh, honey, she said, rushing to Lily. Are you okay? I'm okay. Lily's voice came out thin. I'm actually okay. Emma approached the counter, examined Lily with clinical assessment. Your wrist, where he grabbed you, let me see. Lily held out her arm. Red marks were already darkening to bruises where Voss's fingers had dug in. Emma touched them, gently testing range of motion. You executed the escape correctly, Emma said. Good technique under pressure. I had a good teacher. Emma's expression softened just slightly. You did well. All of it, staying calm, keeping him talking, not backing down. She paused. Your father would be proud. The words broke something in Lily. The tears she'd been holding back since Voss walked in finally spilled over. She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Helen came around the counter, pulled her into a hug. It's okay. It's over now. You're safe. But Lily wasn't crying from fear or relief. She was crying from the weight of it all. Weeks of investigation and training and planning. Weeks of carrying the stories of women who'd been hurt and silenced. Weeks of knowing that if this didn't work, Voss would walk free and keep hunting. And now it was done. The tape was with the MPs. The evidence was solid. Voss was in custody. They'd won. The next 6 weeks were a blur of depositions and interviews. Lily gave her statement to Major Kelly, then to the Judge Advocate General's office, then to the investigating officers building the court-martial case. She walked them through the timeline, the victim interviews, the medical records. Every piece of evidence they'd painstakingly gathered. Claire, Paige, and Bryn gave their statements too. Each one painful and necessary. Each one adding weight to the case against Voss. And each woman, after giving her testimony, said the same thing to Lily. Thank you. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for fighting. The preliminary hearing happened in early January 1992. Voss, in his dress uniform, stripped of insignia, stood before a panel of officers and listened as the charges were read. 7 counts of assault, 5 counts of extortion under UCMJ, Article 127, 3 counts of threatening witnesses, 1 count of breaking and entering, 1 count of destruction of property. His lawyer, a captain from JAG, tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that the women had coordinated their stories, that the tape recording was inadmissible because Lily hadn't informed Voss he was being recorded. But Colorado was a one-party consent state. The law was clear, and the security camera footage backed up everything on the tape. And 7 women with matching stories, matching timelines, matching patterns of injury and extortion were impossible to dismiss as coincidence. The panel ordered Voss held for full court-martial. Trial date set for late January. In the meantime, Lily tried to return to normal life. Classes started up again for spring semester. She picked up extra shifts at the grindstone to save money for tuition. Continued her early morning training sessions with Emma, though the focus had shifted from self-defense to physical fitness and stress management. "You did the hard part," Emma said one morning in mid-January. "Now you have to wait. That's sometimes harder than fighting." "How long did you wait?" Lily asked. "After Panama, after you lost Mike Rodriguez." Emma was quiet for a moment. 2 years before they finished the investigation. Another year before they released the findings. She paused and for the first time told Lily the whole truth. "Turned out our intel officer had been selling information to the enemy. The ambush that killed Mike and 2 others was a direct result. The officer got a dishonorable discharge in 3 years in Leavenworth. That's not justice." "No, but it's all we got." Emma looked at Lily. "The system isn't perfect. Sometimes the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Sometimes good people die and bad people walk. But you fight anyway, because the alternative is letting them win without a fight. And Mike didn't die so I could give up. He died so I could keep going." It was the most Emma had ever said about Panama, about Mike, about the guilt that still woke her up at night. "Thank you," Lily said quietly, "for telling me. Thank you for reminding me that the fight matters." The court-martial convened on January 28, 1992. The courtroom was packed. Press from the local papers, officers from Fort Carson, victims and their families, advocates from women's organizations who'd heard about the case and come to bear witness. Lily sat in the gallery with her mother on one side and Emma on the other. Claire Page and Bryn sat directly behind them. Cole Hargrove sat at the end of the row, his service dress uniform pressed and perfect, despite being 30 years out of date. The prosecution called witnesses methodically. Medical examiners who'd treated the victims, police officers who'd taken reports, the head of security from the grindstone who explained the camera system and authenticated the footage, each one building the case brick by brick, fact by fact. Then the victims testified. Claire went first, told her story of April 12th with steady voice and unwavering eye contact. The defense attorney tried to shake her, suggested she'd misremembered that she'd been interested in Voss romantically, and he'd rejected her. "I was 19 years old," Claire said, "working 2 jobs to afford community college. The last thing I wanted was romantic attention from a customer who cornered me in a storage room and put his hand over my mouth to keep me quiet." The defense had no response. Page testified about the parking lot attack, about the broken nose and the blood and the way Voss and his friends had laughed as they walked away. The defense suggested she'd started the confrontation, that she'd been aggressive first. "I weigh 120 pounds, Page said. "He's 6'2" and 200 plus. You really think I started a fight with him?" Again, no response. Bryn's testimony was the hardest to watch. She cried through most of it, describing waking up to find Voss in her dorm room, his hand on her mouth, his whispered threats. But she didn't break, didn't recant, didn't back down when the defense implied she'd invited him there. "I was asleep," Bryn said, her voice breaking, but determined. "In my own bed, in a locked room. How exactly does one invite someone to break in at 2 in the morning?" The courtroom was silent. On the second day, Lily took the stand. She'd prepared for this, had gone over her testimony with Emma and with the prosecutor. But actually sitting in the witness box with Voss staring at her from the defendant's table was different. She told her story. November 15th. The grab, the fall, the blood. Emma's intervention. Then the investigation. Finding the other victims. building the case, and finally December 20th, the confrontation, the tape recording, his admissions. The defense attorney was a thin man with graying hair and sharp eyes, Captain Morris. He approached the witness box like a predator. "Miss Brennan," he said, "isn't it true that you initiated this investigation, that you sought out these other women and convinced them to make accusations?" "I didn't convince them of anything. I just gave them a chance to be heard." "A chance or an opportunity. You're aware that several of these women have received financial compensation as a result of these accusations. The Victims Assistance Fund isn't compensation. It's support for medical bills and counseling that they needed because of what Staff Sergeant Voss did to them. $15,000 total distributed among 7 women. Convenient, wouldn't you say, particularly given your own financial situation?" Lily felt her face flush. "My financial situation has nothing to do with— Your father died owing $47,000 in medical debt. You're working 3 jobs to afford community college. One might argue you had strong motivation to manufacture a case that would result in financial benefit for yourself." "Objection." The prosecutor, Captain Williams, stood. "Counsel is implying Miss Brennan fabricated evidence. There's no foundation for that accusation, and it's contradicted by the physical evidence, the medical records, and the security footage." "Sustained." The judge looked at Captain Morris. "Move on, counsel." But the damage was done. The implication hung in the air. Lily saw some of the panel members exchanging glances, saw doubt creeping in. Then Cole Hargrove was called to testify. He took the stand slowly, his cane tapping against the floor. 70 years old, back straight, despite the pain Lily knew he carried from Beirut. Eyes clear and steady, he raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor walked him through November 15th, what he'd seen, where he'd been sitting, the clarity of his view. "I saw Staff Sergeant Voss grab Miss Brennan's apron," Hargrove said. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of decades of service and absolute certainty. "I saw her stumble backward. I saw her head strike the counter. I saw blood. And I saw Miss Thorne intervene to prevent further violence." "Mr. Hargrove," the prosecutor said, "why didn't you intervene yourself?" "Because I'm a 70-year-old man with a bad leg from Beirut in '83 and arthritis in both knees. By the time I could have gotten there with my cane, it would have been over." He paused. "But I could witness. I could remember. And I could testify. That's what I'm doing now." Captain Morris approached for cross-examination. "Mr. Hargrove, you're a regular at the Grindstone Café, correct?" "For 18 years. So you know Miss Brennan. You're friendly with her." "I know her to say hello. I know she makes my tea the way I like it. I know she's studying to be a doctor. I know she's a good kid who works hard." "Would you say you're biased in her favor?" Hargrove looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it filled the courtroom. "Son, I served in the Marine Corps for 26 years. I saw combat in Grenada and Beirut. I watched good men die. I learned a long time ago that the truth doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you like someone or not. It just is." He leaned forward slightly. "I'm not biased. I'm just telling you what I saw. And what I saw was a decorated staff sergeant assault a 19-year-old girl for the crime of asking him to wait his turn. If that makes me biased, then yes, I'm biased toward basic human decency." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Several of the panel members were nodding slightly. The defense had no response to that. The trial lasted 5 days. The prosecution presented the timeline Emma had created, showing the pattern of escalating violence. They presented the medical records, each one documenting injuries consistent with assault. They presented the police reports, the security camera footage, the tape recording. They presented the evidence of extortion. Bank statements from Brennan Page showing regular cash withdrawals on the same day each month. Testimony about the threats Voss had made. The systematic nature of his operation. The defense argued coincidence, argued that the women had coordinated their stories, argued that Voss was being railroaded by vengeful accusers who wanted money and attention. But the evidence was overwhelming. 7 victims with consistent stories, medical documentation, police reports, witness testimony from civilians, and from Emma, whose military record and credentials were impeccable. The security camera footage showing Voss grabbing Lily twice weeks apart. The tape recording capturing his admissions. On February 4th, 1992, after 5 days of testimony, the panel deliberated for 4 hours. They returned with a verdict. The courtroom stood as the panel filed back in. Lily's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Ruth gripped her hand. Emma sat perfectly still beside them, but Lily could feel the tension radiating from her. The presiding officer, a colonel with 25 years of service, looked at Voss. Staff Sergeant Dalton Voss, on the charge of assault in violation of Article 128(7) specifications. How do you find guilty on all specifications? On the charge of extortion in violation of Article 127(5) specifications. How do you find guilty on all specifications? On the charge of conduct unbecoming 3 specifications. How do you find guilty on all specifications? The courtroom erupted, not in celebration, but in a collective release of breath that had been held for weeks. Relief, validation, justice. Voss sat very still at the defendant's table. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, said something quiet. Voss didn't respond. He stared straight ahead, face blank, as the guilty verdicts kept coming. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Lily felt her mother's arms around her, felt Claire's hand on her shoulder from behind, heard Bryn crying, but this time with relief. The judge called for order. The panel will reconvene tomorrow at 0900 for sentencing. This court is adjourned. That night, the 7 women gathered at Emma's house. Emma had never had so many people in her small living room, but she'd opened her home without hesitation when Lily asked. They didn't talk much about the trial. They talked about other things. Claire's plans for psychology school, Paige's new job in Denver, Bryn's acceptance to medical school, Ruth's promotion at King Soopers. They talked about the future instead of the past. And they laughed, real laughter, unforced and genuine. The kind that comes from survival, from making it through to the other side. Emma watched from the kitchen doorway, a small smile on her face. Lily caught her eye and mouthed, "Thank you." Emma nodded. Then she went back to making coffee, for everyone content to let the women celebrate without her at the center. The sentencing hearing happened the next morning. The courtroom was packed again. The prosecution asked for the maximum sentence, citing the number of victims, the pattern of escalating violence, the systematic extortion, the betrayal of his oath as a soldier. The defense pleaded for leniency, cited Voss's service record, his Bronze Star, his combat experience, his PTSD from Desert Storm, argued that he deserved treatment, not punishment. The panel deliberated for 2 hours. They returned with the sentence: dishonorable discharge, 18 years confinement at the United States Disciplinary Barracks, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, $65,000 in restitution to be divided equally among the 7 victims, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, reduction in rank to E1. The Bronze Star would be reviewed by the Army Review Board for potential revocation. Voss's face crumpled. For the first time since the trial began, he showed real emotion. Not remorse, not guilt, just pure devastated fury at being caught, at being punished, at losing everything. Trent Caldwell and Wade Merrick, who'd pled guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testimony against Voss, received bad conduct discharges and 6 years confinement each. When the judge dismissed the court, Lily didn't move for a long moment. She sat in the gallery holding her mother's hand and let the reality sink in. It was over. Really over. Voss would go to prison. The other women would get compensation, closure, safety. They'd won. But more than that, they'd changed something. The prosecution had mentioned it in their closing arguments. This case would be studied, would be used as an example, would help other victims come forward. 7 women had refused to stay silent, and the system for once had listened. Outside the courtroom, the victims gathered on the steps. Press cameras flashed, a reporter shouted questions, but the women ignored them, turned to each other instead. Claire hugged Lily first. "We did it. We actually did it." "You did it," Paige said, pulling Lily into a hug. "You started this. You convinced us we could fight back." "Emma started it," Lily said, looking over at where Emma stood apart from the group near the edge of the steps. "If she hadn't stepped in that first day, but you finished it." Bryn's voice was quiet but firm. You could have stayed quiet, stayed safe. You didn't. You fought, for all of us. Emma was already turning to leave, uncomfortable with the attention, but Lily excused herself and walked over. You leaving? Lily asked. This is your moment, not mine. It's our moment. Lily looked back at the other women, then at Emma. None of this happens without you. You know that, right? Emma was quiet for a moment. I just taught you some self-defense moves. You taught me I was worth defending, that I didn't have to accept being a victim, that I could fight back. Lily paused. Mike Rodriguez, the friend you lost in Panama. You said he'd tell you that you were an idiot for getting involved with me. He would have. What would you tell him now? Emma looked at the courthouse, at the women on the steps, at the future spreading out before them. I'd tell him that maybe getting involved one more time was the right choice. Maybe helping someone else fight their battles is how you stop fighting your own. She paused. And I'd tell him that I finally understand what he meant when he said that the mission matters more than the fear, that some things are worth the risk. You saved me, Lily said quietly. I don't just mean from Voss. I mean from being powerless, from thinking I had to accept whatever the world did to me. You saved yourself. I just gave you tools. Then thank you for the tools. Emma smiled, rare and genuine. You're welcome. Now go celebrate with your friends. You earned it. They parted ways on the courthouse steps. Emma to her truck, Lily back to the group of women who'd become more than just fellow victims. They'd become sisters in survival. The weeks after the trial were strange for Lily. She felt like she should be celebrating, but mostly she just felt tired, exhausted in a way that sleep didn't fix. The adrenaline that had carried her through investigation and confrontation and trial had burned out, leaving her hollow. Her classes started back up. She struggled to focus on anatomy and chemistry when her brain kept replaying, testimony, kept seeing Voss's face when the verdict was read, kept wondering if any of it had been worth the cost. The Victims Assistance Fund distributed $65,000 among 7 women on February 15th. Lily's share was just over $9,000. It paid off most of her father's remaining medical debt, left enough for her to pay tuition for the next year without working 3 jobs. It should have felt like victory, like justice. Instead, it felt like blood, money, like compensation for wounds that shouldn't have needed compensating because they shouldn't have happened in the first place. Emma noticed, of course. She always noticed. You're struggling, she said one morning in late February during their training session. I'm fine. You're not. You're carrying weight you don't need to carry. Lily stopped mid-stretch. How do I put it down? By accepting that you did what you could, that you got justice for yourself and 6 other women, that Voss is in prison where he belongs. That's enough. Is it because more women are going to get hurt by men like him? This didn't fix the system. It didn't change anything fundamental. It changed something for Claire, for Paige, for Bryn, for you, for every woman who hears about this case and decides to come forward instead of staying silent. Emma sat beside her on the mat. You can't save everyone. You can only save who's in front of you. That has to be enough, or you'll destroy yourself trying to do more. That's I am. Is that what you did after Panama? Emma was quiet for a long time. Yes, I tried to save everyone. Blamed myself for every mission that went wrong, every soldier who got hurt. It ate me alive until I had nothing left. She looked at Lily. Don't make my mistakes. You did good work here. Let that be enough, and then keep doing good work one person at a time. In mid-March, the Colorado Veterans Foundation announced a new scholarship, the Thomas Brennan Memorial Scholarship, $12,000 annually for dependents of Gulf War veterans pursuing careers in healthcare. Cole Hargrove had organized it, called in favors from every veteran organization in Colorado, raised money from retired soldiers who remembered what it was like to serve, to sacrifice, to come home damaged. Lily was the first recipient. At the award ceremony at the Fort Carson Community Center, Hargrove stood at the podium in his dress uniform, medals gleaming. Thomas Brennan served his country in Desert Storm, he said. His voice was strong despite his age. He came home sick with something the doctors couldn't diagnose, couldn't treat, couldn't cure. He died owing money for trying to stay alive. His voice roughened. His daughter shouldn't have to choose between honoring his memory and affording an education. This scholarship ensures she won't have to. And it ensures that Thomas Brennan's sacrifice and the sacrifice of all Gulf War veterans is remembered. Lily stood when her name was called, walked to the stage on her bad leg that didn't bother her quite so much anymore. The limp was still there, would always be there, but it was part of her story now, part of her strength. She accepted the certificate in the check in the handshake from Hargrove. "Your father would be proud," he said. "Thank you for making this possible. Thank you for showing an old Marine that fighting back still matters, that the next generation hasn't forgotten what honor means." In April, on what would have been Thomas Brennan's 45th birthday, Lily drove to Fort Logan National Cemetery, found her father's grave among thousands of white headstones, identical markers in perfect rows stretching across the green grass. She sat on the ground beside his marker, traced his name with her fingers. Thomas J. Brennan, Sergeant U.S. Marine Corps, Gulf War, beloved husband and father. "I did it, Dad," she said. The cemetery was quiet except for the wind in the trees and the distant sound of traffic. "I finished first year, straight A's, got the scholarship. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to help people the way you wanted me to." A flag snapped in the breeze somewhere nearby. "I learned to fight, not just with fists, but with evidence and testimony and truth. I learned that being small doesn't mean being helpless, that being hurt doesn't mean being broken." She pulled out the small photograph she'd brought, her and her father from years before the Gulf, before the sickness. Both of them smiling at the camera, happy and whole. "I wish you could have met Emma. You would have liked her. She's like you. Quiet strength. The kind of person who steps up when everyone else steps back. She taught me what you always tried to teach me. That running from fear doesn't make you safe. That standing your ground does." She placed the photograph on the grave, weighted it with a small stone. "I'm okay now. We're okay, me and Mom. We're going to make it." She stood, wiped her eyes, turned to leave. Emma stood 20 feet away, waiting by Lily's car. She'd driven Lily here, offered to wait or to come with her, whichever Lily needed. Lily had asked her to wait, but now, seeing her there, patient and steady, Lily was glad for the company. They drove back to Colorado Springs in comfortable silence. The mountains rose to the west, still snow-capped in April, beautiful and permanent. The city sprawled below, messy and human and alive. "I'm thinking about applying for the EMT program at Pikes Peak Community College," Lily said. "They have a track that lets you work while you finish your pre-med requirements. Real-world medical experience." "That's good. You'd be good at that. You think, you stay calm under pressure, you care about people, you don't quit when things get hard." Emma glanced over. "Yeah, you'd be good at it." At a stoplight, Lily looked at Emma's profile. Weathered and strong, still carrying her own wounds, her own ghosts, but carrying them forward instead of being buried by them. "What are you going to do?" Lily asked. "Now that this is done." "Keep making furniture, keep training, keep—" Emma paused. "Keep living. That's harder than it sounds sometimes, but I'm getting better at it." "Yeah, it is." The light changed. Emma drove. 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening in late May, Lily stood in the Grindstone Café after closing. Helen had asked her to stay late, said there was something important to discuss. The cafe owner came out from the back room with a large envelope. "This came for you today, from Fort Carson." Lily opened it. Inside was a letter on official military letterhead. "Dear Miss Brennan, on behalf of the United States Army, I want to thank you for your courage and persistence in bringing Staff Sergeant Dalton Voss to justice. Your investigation was thorough, professional, and instrumental in protecting other potential victims. As a direct result of your actions, in this case, Fort Carson is implementing new protocols for reporting and investigating sexual assault and harassment allegations. We are establishing a dedicated sexual assault response coordinator position. We are launching mandatory training for all personnel on appropriate conduct, bystander intervention, and victim support. We are creating an independent reporting channel that bypasses the chain of command. These changes will not undo the harm already done, but they may prevent future harm. That is due in large part to your willingness to stand up and speak truth, and to the courage of Claire Ashford, Paige Holloway, Bryn Sutton, and the other victims who came forward. Thank you for your service to justice and to your fellow citizens. Sincerely, Major General William Hartzog, Commanding General, Fort Carson." Lily read it twice, then handed it to Helen, her hands trembling slightly. You did that, Helen said, reading through the letter. You changed policy. You made them take this seriously. This is going to help so many people. We did that, all of us. Claire and Paige and Bryn and Emma and Cole and you. Lily folded the letter carefully, reverently. One person can't change a system, but a lot of people refusing to stay silent can start to bend it toward justice. Your dad would be so proud. I know. Lily smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I know he would. That night, Lily walked home instead of driving. Late May evening, warm and gentle after the long winter, the mountains painted gold and purple in the sunset. Her bad leg ached slightly, but she barely noticed anymore. The limp was part of her now. Not a weakness, just a characteristic, like her auburn hair, or her green eyes, or her stubborn refusal to quit. She thought about the past 6 months, about blood on a cafe floor, and stitches in her head, and learning to fight back. About Emma's quiet strength and Cole's steady witness, and her mother's terrified but unwavering support. About Claire and Paige and Bryn finding their voices after so long being silenced. About Voss in prison and new policies at Fort Carson and scholarships in her father's name. It wasn't a perfect ending. Perfect would have been Voss never attacking anyone. Perfect would have been her father healthy and alive. Perfect would have been a world where 19-year-old girls didn't have to learn combat techniques to feel safe at work. But it was an ending, and it was justice. Imperfect, incomplete, but real. More than that, it was a beginning. Lily turned onto her street, saw her mother's Honda in its usual spot, saw the light on in their apartment window. Home, safety, future. She climbed the stairs, opened the door. Ruth looked up from the kitchen table where she was sorting bills. Hi, honey. How was work? Good. Really good, actually. Lily hung up her jacket, joined her mother at the table. Fort Carson sent a letter. They're changing their policies, creating new positions, new training, because of what we did. Ruth took her daughter's hand, squeezed it tight. That's wonderful, sweetie. That's really wonderful. Yeah, it is. They sat in the small kitchen as evening deepened into night. Mother and daughter, survivors, fighters, builders of a better future, one small change at a time. Outside the city hummed with ordinary life. People going home from work, families eating dinner, students studying for exams. The mundane machinery of existence grinding forward, unaware that 7 women had just made it a little bit safer. And in a small house on Maple Grove Lane, Emma Thorne sat in her garage workshop. She'd just finished a dining table. Cherry wood hand-joined, beautiful in its simplicity, a commissioned piece for a family and monument. But before she packaged it for delivery, she pulled out her chisel and carved something into the underside where only someone looking would see it. Small, precise letters in neat rows. For Mike, for Lily, for the fight that matters. She ran her hand over the wood one last time, felt the grain, the smoothness, the strength that came from being properly joined together. I'm doing okay, Mike, she said to the empty garage, to the ghost she carried, to the memory that would never quite fade. I helped someone. She helped herself. We made a difference. She paused, smiled slightly. And I think I'm starting to forgive myself, finally, after all these years. The ghost of Mike Rodriguez, if he was listening, didn't answer. But Emma felt lighter somehow, like a weight she'd been carrying for 3 years had finally incrementally begun to lift. She packaged the table, loaded it into her truck, would deliver it tomorrow morning and watch the family's joy as they saw the finished piece. But tonight she had somewhere else to be. The summer unfolded warm and bright. Lily worked her shifts at the grindstone and took accelerated summer classes and trained for her EMT certification. Ruth's promotion came through at King Soopers, finally enough money to stop working overtime every week. For the first time in years, they had breathing room. They took a weekend trip to Gardens of the Kings, first vacation in 3 years. Stood among the ancient red rocks and felt small in the best way, humbled by time and geology and the reminder that their problems, however large they felt, were temporary in the vast sweep of history. Claire enrolled in community college for fall semester, psychology degree. She wanted to counsel assault survivors, to be the voice of experience and hope that she'd needed and hadn't had. Paige moved to Denver for a fresh start away from Fort Carson and the memories. Got a job at a bookstore and started writing poetry about survival and strength. Bryn graduated summa cum laude and got accepted to medical school at CU Boulder. Called Lily to share the news, both of them crying happy tears on the phone. They stayed in touch. Monthly coffee dates at the grindstone. Updates and encouragement in the bond of shared survival that would last the rest of their lives. In August, Lily got her EMT certification, started working shifts with Colorado Springs Fire Department, saw her first trauma call a car accident on I-25, and held a woman's hand while they stabilized her injuries and told her she was going to be okay. "You were so calm," the woman whispered as they loaded her into the ambulance. "How are you so calm?" Lily thought about Emma's teaching, about staying present, about channeling fear into action, about knowing you've trained for exactly this moment and trusting that training even when your heart is racing. "Practice," she said, squeezing the woman's hand gently, "and really good teachers." On a cool September morning, first day of Lily's sophomore year, she woke early. Not from nightmares, not from fear, just naturally ready for the day ahead. She dressed in scrubs, her new uniform for clinical rotations at the VA hospital. Looked at herself in the mirror. The scar on her temple had faded to a thin, white line, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. She knew, would always know, would carry it as a reminder, not of weakness, but of strength, of the day she decided never to be helpless again. She grabbed her backpack, kissed her mother goodbye, drove to campus through the morning light. Someone called her name as she walked toward the medical building. Emma stood near the entrance holding 2 coffee cups, black the way they both liked it. "What are you doing here?" Lily asked, surprised and delighted. "Thought you might need this. First day of clinicals. Big deal." Lily took the coffee, the warmth seeping into her hands. "Thanks. You didn't have to." "I know, I wanted to." They stood together in the September sun, teacher and student survivor. And survivor, 2 women who had found strength in different ways and learned to share it forward. "You ready?" Emma asked. Lily thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. Her father's death and the debt that came with it. Voss's attack and the fear that followed. The decision to fight back instead of accept. The investigation and the trial and the victory. The scholarship and the training and the countless hours of learning to be strong enough to help others. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." Emma nodded, started to turn away. "Wait," Lily said. "I'm starting something new. A self-defense class for women on campus. Student Health Services is sponsoring it. Basic awareness, basic techniques, empowerment through education." She paused. "I was wondering if you'd help me teach it." Emma was quiet. For a moment, Lily thought she'd refuse, that she'd retreat back into her solitary life of woodworking and quiet routines. Then Emma smiled, small but genuine. "When do we start?" "Next Thursday, 7 p.m. "I'll be there." They parted ways. Emma back to her truck, Lily into the medical building. Both of them moving forward. Both of them carrying ghosts that were lighter, now bearable part of the past instead of chains holding them there. The first self-defense class had 12 students. Nervous young women who'd heard about Lily's story who wanted to feel safer, stronger, more capable of protecting themselves. Lily and Emma taught them the basics. Awareness, how to see threats before they became emergencies. Boundaries, how to assert them clearly and early. Escape techniques, the same fundamentals Emma had taught Lily that first morning in the garage. At the end of class, a freshman with wide eyes and shaking hands raised her hand. "How long before we're good at this? Before we're as good as you?" Lily looked at Emma. Emma looked back. Some communication passed between them that didn't need words, the understanding of shared experience and mutual respect. "You're already good at this," Lily said, "because you showed up, because you decided you were worth defending. The techniques are just tools. The real strength, the strength that matters was already inside you. We're just helping you find it." The class grew. 15 students, 20, 25. By October, they had to move to a larger room in the rec center. By November, they were turning people away, starting a waiting list for the spring semester. Other colleges heard about the program, asked Lily to come speak to help them start similar programs on their campuses. The story spread through campus newspapers and local news and word of mouth. Young woman fights back, gets justice, teaches others to do the same. It wasn't the medical career Lily had imagined for herself, but it was medicine of a different kind, healing wounds before they happened, giving people power over their own safety, preventing trauma instead of just treating it after the fact. On December 20th, the one-year anniversary of her confrontation with Voss, Lily stood in the Grindstone Café. Helen had closed early for a small private gathering. The 7 victims were all there. Emma and Cole, Ruth, a few others who'd helped along the way. Helen had made a cake, chocolate with white frosting and simple decoration. No words, no celebration of the trauma. Just sweetness shared among people who'd survived something difficult together. I wanted to say thank you, Lily said, standing in the middle of the cafe where it had all begun. To all of you, for believing me, for fighting with me, for not letting him win. You led the fight, Claire said. We just followed. No, Lily shook her head firmly. We fought together. That's the only way it works. That's the only way it ever works. One person speaking up is brave. 7 people speaking up together is unstoppable. They ate cake, drank coffee and tea, told stories that were starting slowly to be funny instead of just painful, laughed at shared memories that had lost their sharp edges with time and healing. At 9 o'clock, people started leaving, hugs and promises to stay in touch, and plans for the next gathering. Eventually, only Lily and Emma remained sitting at the corner table where Emma had spent so many afternoons reading. It's been a year, Lily said. It has. Everything's different now. Lily considered the question seriously. I'm different, stronger, more sure of myself. I know what I'm capable of now. She paused. But more than that, I know what we're capable of. Together. What people can do when they refuse to accept injustice. You always had that capability. You just needed permission to use it. You gave me that permission. No, Emma's voice was gentle but firm. I just showed you the door. You walked through it yourself. You did the work. You built the case. You faced him down. All I did was teach you a few techniques and watch you become who you always had the potential to be. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, December snow began to fall, the first real snow of the season. Soft flakes drifting down through the streetlight, glow covering the city in quiet white. What's next for you, Emma asked. Keep teaching, keep studying, apply to med school next year. Lily smiled. Maybe write a book someday about what happened, about fighting back, about how the system fails us, but we can still win if we refuse to give up. That's ambitious. I learned it from the best. Emma smiled. Yes, you did. They finished their coffee in comfortable silence. 2 women, 2 survivors, 2 teachers. Bound by trauma, but defined by their response to it. Stronger together than either could have been alone. They cleaned up, together, turned off the lights, walked out into the December snow. At their cars, Lily turned back one more time. Emma, I know I've said this before, but thank you for everything, for saving me, for teaching me, for being someone I could count on when I had no one else. Emma looked at her for a long moment, snowflakes catching in her gray hair. Thank you for reminding me that fighting back still matters, that one person can still make a difference, that getting involved, taking the risk of caring again, was worth it. She paused. I'd forgotten that. After Mike, after Panama, I'd forgotten that the mission matters more than the fear. You reminded me. You'll keep teaching even when I graduate and move on. Yeah, I'll keep teaching. Someone has to. Emma smiled slightly. Besides, I'm getting good at it, and it turns out I like it. Helping people find their strength. Watching them discover they're not as helpless as they thought. She searched for the word. It's healing. For them and for me. They parted ways, Emma to her truck, Lily to her Honda. Both of them driving through snow-quiet streets toward home, toward rest, toward the future that spread out before them, full of possibility and purpose. Lily drove past Fort Carson's gates, past the medical center, where they'd stitched her head that first day, past the courthouse where justice had been served. All the places that had marked her transformation from victim to survivor to fighter to teacher. At home, Ruth had left the porch light on as always. Lily parked, grabbed her bag, walked up the familiar steps through the falling snow. Inside, warm and bright, a letter sat on the kitchen table. Medical school information from CU Denver. Application deadline March 1st. Lily picked it up, read through the requirements, smiled. She would apply. She would get in. She would become a doctor. She would heal people, but she would also keep teaching self-defense, keep helping women find their strength, keep fighting against systems that protected predators and silenced victims, keep building one person at a time the world she wanted to live in. One person couldn't change everything, but one person could start, and that start could become a movement, and that movement could become change, and that change could save lives. Lily looked at the letter again, at the future spreading out before her. Different than she'd imagined a year ago when she was just a scared girl behind a counter. Better in ways she couldn't have predicted. "I'm going to make you proud, Dad," she said to the empty kitchen, to the memory that lived in her heart. "I'm going to help people. I'm going to fight for people. I'm going to be the kind of doctor who sees the whole person, not just their injuries. And I'm going to teach people to fight for themselves, because that's what you taught me. That's what Emma taught me. That strength isn't just about what you can do. It's about what you can help others discover they can do." Outside, the snow fell heavier, blanketing Colorado Springs in white silence. The city settled into winter sleep. And Lily Brennan, 19 years old with a limp and a scar and an unbreakable will, began planning her next fight. The one that would last a lifetime. The fight to heal. The fight to protect. The fight to ensure that no one else would ever have to face their monsters alone. Because she knew now in her bones and blood and scarred skin that the strongest thing you could do wasn't fighting your own battles. It was teaching others that they could fight theirs and win.